Are you ready to uncover the eye-opening truths about life and existence that no one talks about? In this video, we are diving into the teachings of Buddhism to uncover 7 brutal truths that are often overlooked in mainstream society. Lesson 1. No one has to give you anything. The feeling that we are entitled to something, whether it be love from our partners, recognition from our colleagues, or even basic respect from strangers, is often deeply ingrained in us. We believe that because we have put effort into something, we deserve a specific outcome in return. This sense of entitlement can lead to frustration, disappointment, and resentment when the world doesn't meet our expectations. Buddhism teaches us to see things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. At the heart of this teaching is the concept of non-self. The idea of non-self challenges our sense of individual ego. In essence, it says that the belief in a separate, self-contained identity is an illusion. This illusion often fuels our sense of entitlement. We believe that our individual efforts and actions should guarantee us certain outcomes because we perceive ourselves as distinct entities with specific needs and desires. This perception can lead to great suffering. When we expect the world to give us something in return for our actions, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Life does not work on a transactional basis. Just because you are kind to others does not mean they will automatically be kind to you. Just because you work hard does not mean you will immediately find success. The world operates according to its own principles, and these principles are not designed to cater to our individual desires. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is the importance of letting go of attachment, and in this case, letting go of the expectation that others should give us something in return for what we do. When you let go of expectations, you free yourself from the pain of disappointment. You stop waiting for others to fulfill your needs and instead take responsibility for your own happiness. This doesn't mean that you should become indifferent or stop caring about others. On the contrary, it means that you can act out of compassion and kindness without expecting anything in return. True generosity and kindness come from a place of selflessness, where your actions are not tied to an anticipated outcome. You give because you want to give, not because you expect something in return. The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from attachment, whether it's attachment to material possessions, relationships, or even outcomes. When you are attached to the idea that others must give you something, you are placing your happiness in their hands. But when you let go of this attachment, you reclaim your power. You realize that your happiness does not depend on what others do or don't give you. One of the greatest lessons you can learn from this truth is the importance of self-reliance and personal responsibility. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you success, happiness, or fulfillment on a silver platter. These things must be cultivated from within. This might sound harsh, but it is one of the most empowering realizations you can have. When you stop waiting for others to give you what you need, you realize that you have the power to create the life you want. You become responsible for your own well-being, your own happiness, and your own success. When you stop expecting others to fulfill your needs, you begin to focus on what you can control: your thoughts, your actions, and your responses to the world around you. This shift in perspective can lead to a profound sense of freedom. You stop feeling victimized by circumstances and instead take charge of your own destiny. When you accept that no one has to give you anything, you build inner strength and resilience. You stop relying on external validation or approval for your sense of self-worth. Instead, you develop a sense of inner peace that comes from knowing that you are enough, regardless of what others think or do. This inner strength is crucial for navigating life's inevitable challenges. There will be times when people disappoint you, when the world feels unfair, or when things don't go as planned. But when you are not dependent on others for your happiness, these setbacks lose their power over you. You can face adversity with grace and resilience because your sense of self is not tied to external factors. The Buddha taught that suffering is a part of life, but he also taught that we have the power to transcend suffering through mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion. When you accept that no one owes you anything, you stop clinging to unrealistic expectations and begin to find peace in the present moment. You realize that everything you need is already within you. Understanding that no one has to give you anything can also lead to greater compassion for others. When you let go of the expectation that others must fulfill your needs, you stop placing unfair demands on them. You begin to see them for who they are, individuals with their own struggles, desires, and challenges. This shift in perspective can deepen your relationships. Instead of approaching others with a sense of entitlement, you approach them with empathy and understanding. You recognize that they are not responsible for your happiness, just as you are not responsible for theirs. This doesn't mean you don't care for them, but it means that you allow them the freedom to be who they are, without the burden of your expectations. Buddhism teaches the importance of loving kindness. Loving kindness is the practice of offering unconditional love and goodwill to all beings without expecting anything in return. When you embrace the truth that no one has to give you anything, you can practice loving kindness more fully. You give love not because you want something back, but because you genuinely wish for the happiness and well-being of others. When you are not attached to the idea that others owe you something, you experience a profound sense of freedom. You are no longer bound by the need for approval, validation, or recognition. You can engage with the world from a place of openness and curiosity, without the weight of expectations. This freedom allows you to live more fully in the present moment. You stop worrying about what others will give you or how they will respond to you, and instead focus on your own actions and intentions. You live with integrity, kindness, and purpose, knowing that your happiness is not dependent on external factors. The truth that no one has to give you anything may seem harsh at first, but it is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. It frees you from the burden of expectations, allows you to take responsibility for your own happiness, and fosters greater compassion for others. By embracing this truth, you begin to cultivate inner strength, resilience, and peace. You realize that everything you need is already within you, and that the path to true happiness lies not in what others give you, but in what you give to yourself and the world. Lesson 2. You can't make everyone happy. One of the most challenging realizations in life is that no matter how hard you try, you simply cannot make everyone happy. It's human nature to seek approval and validation from others, whether it's from family, friends, colleagues, or society at large. We often shape our actions and behaviors based on how we think others will perceive us. Yet, despite our best efforts, there will always be someone who disapproves, misunderstands, or is unsatisfied with us. The brutal truth is that you cannot control how others feel or think, and trying to do so only leads to frustration, burnout, and emotional exhaustion. In Buddhism, this concept is closely tied to the idea of attachment. The Buddha taught that attachment to external validation is one of the key sources of suffering. When we attach our happiness or sense of self-worth to what others think of us, we give away our power. We become like puppets, constantly trying to please others, often at the expense of our own happiness, values, and inner peace. The Buddha taught that true peace and happiness come from within, not from external sources. This is why it is so important to cultivate inner contentment. When you rely on others to make you feel happy or validated, you're handing over control of your emotional well-being to forces outside of your control. The solution is to develop self-awareness and self-compassion, recognizing that your worth is intrinsic and not dependent on anyone else's approval. Another key aspect of this truth is understanding that you don't have control over other people's feelings, thoughts, or actions. We often mistakenly believe that if we say the right thing or behave in a certain way, we can control how others perceive us. But the reality is that everyone views the world through their own unique lens, shaped by their personal experiences, biases, and emotions. No matter how kind, generous, or considerate you are, there will always be people who misunderstand your intentions or judge you unfairly. This is because their reactions are based on their own internal struggles, insecurities, and perceptions. You cannot change how someone feels or thinks, no matter how much you try. What you can control, however, is your own response to the situation. Buddhism encourages us to practice equanimity, the ability to remain calm and balanced in the face of praise or criticism. Whether people approve of you or disapprove, whether they are pleased with you or upset, your sense of inner peace should remain steady. This doesn't mean you become indifferent or uncaring, but rather that you stop letting other people's opinions dictate your emotional state. You learn to accept that you cannot please everyone, and that's okay. It's important to clarify that this lesson is not about becoming selfish or disregarding the feelings of others. Buddhism teaches compassion, the desire to alleviate the suffering of others. However, compassion does not mean sacrificing your own well-being or happiness for the sake of pleasing others. The key is to find balance, a middle path that allows you to be kind and considerate without compromising your own values or mental health. When you prioritize making others happy above all else, you run the risk of losing yourself. You may find yourself saying yes to things you don't really want to do, taking on responsibilities that overwhelm you, or bending your beliefs to fit in with others. This can lead to resentment, burnout, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. The Buddha warned against attachment to external approval because it ultimately leads to suffering, both for you and the people you're trying to please. The middle path is about understanding that while it's important to be compassionate and considerate of others, you must also remain true to yourself. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions or making sure they are always happy. Your responsibility is to act with integrity, kindness, and wisdom, and to recognize that how others respond to your actions is beyond your control. A key teaching in Buddhism is non-attachment, which is the practice of letting go of our desires and expectations. When you let go of the need to make everyone happy, you free yourself from a great deal of emotional suffering. Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring about people or become indifferent to their feelings. It means that you stop attaching your sense of worth or happiness to their approval. Non-attachment also involves letting go of the idea that you can control how others perceive you. People's opinions are not a reflection of your worth or your character. They are reflections of their own inner world, their own struggles, and their own interpretations of reality. By releasing the need for approval, you liberate yourself from the endless cycle of trying to meet everyone's expectations. One of the most profound realizations that comes from embracing this truth is the understanding that inner peace comes from within, not from external validation. When you stop trying to make everyone happy, you create space for self-compassion and self-acceptance. You begin to focus on your own inner growth, your own spiritual path, and your own happiness. The Buddha taught that happiness is an inside job. True contentment comes not from external circumstances or the approval of others, but from a deep sense of inner peace and wisdom. When you stop chasing after the impossible goal of making everyone happy, you free yourself to live authentically and joyfully. This doesn't mean you will never feel hurt or disappointed when someone disapproves of you or when a relationship becomes strained. But with practice, you can develop a sense of resilience, understanding that your happiness is not dependent on the fleeting opinions of others. You begin to trust yourself more, knowing that you are enough just as you are, regardless of what others think. The truth that you can't make everyone happy is one of the most liberating and transformative lessons you can learn. It teaches you to release the burden of trying to control other people's emotions and to stop sacrificing your own happiness in the pursuit of approval. By embracing this truth, you cultivate a sense of inner strength, self-acceptance, and compassion, both for yourself and for others. Lesson 3. Time is your most important thing. We live in a world where we often treat time as if it's endless, wasting it on things that don't truly matter. But here's the brutal truth. Time is your most important resource. Once it's gone, you can never get it back. Everything in life is transient, including our time on this earth. This truth forces us to confront our mortality and the finite nature of our existence. While this may seem frightening at first, it's also incredibly liberating. When you truly understand the impermanence of time, you begin to live with greater intention. Each moment becomes precious, an opportunity for growth, love, and connection. You no longer waste time on meaningless pursuits or superficial desires. You begin to prioritize what truly matters: your relationships, your purpose, your spiritual growth. The Buddha taught mindfulness, being present in the moment, fully aware of your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings. When you are mindful, you realize that the only time you truly have is the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is uncertain. All you have is now, and how you choose to use this moment determines the quality of your life. Too often, we get caught up in the distractions of life, chasing after material success, worrying about the future, or dwelling on the past. But when you realize that your time is limited, you start to let go of these distractions. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter, and you focus on what brings you joy, meaning, and fulfillment. Lesson 4. People think about themselves first. This truth may feel harsh, but it's one that can transform your relationships and how you interact with the world. People think about themselves first. At the end of the day, most people are primarily concerned with their own lives, their own happiness, and their own well-being. Buddhism teaches the concept of dukkha, or suffering. One of the core reasons for suffering is our attachment to the self. We are conditioned to view the world through the lens of me and mine. This doesn't mean that people are selfish or unkind. It's simply human nature. We are all navigating our own challenges, fears, and desires. When you understand that people are primarily focused on their own lives, you begin to let go of unrealistic expectations in your relationships. You stop expecting others to always meet your needs or prioritize you. Instead, you develop compassion. You realize that everyone is struggling in their own way, and they are doing the best they can with the knowledge and resources they have. This truth also frees you from taking things personally. When someone doesn't meet your expectations or disappoints you, it's not necessarily a reflection of their lack of care for you. Often, it's because they are dealing with their own issues. When you realize that people are primarily focused on themselves, you can approach relationships with more understanding and patience. The Buddha taught the importance of compassion, understanding the suffering of others and responding with kindness. When you accept that people are primarily concerned with their own lives, you can cultivate compassion rather than resentment. You begin to see the humanity in others, and this deepens your connections. Lesson 5. We can't always be happy. One of the most pervasive myths in modern society is the belief that we should always be happy. We are constantly bombarded with messages that tell us happiness is the ultimate goal, and that if we're not happy, something is wrong. But here's the brutal truth. We can't always be happy, and that's okay. Buddhism teaches the concept of dukkha, which can be translated as suffering or dissatisfaction. Life is inherently filled with suffering. Birth, aging, sickness, and death are inevitable. But suffering is not something to be feared or avoided. Instead, it is an opportunity for growth and awakening. Happiness is transient. It comes and goes, just like all emotions. Clinging to happiness or believing that we should always be happy leads to suffering because it creates unrealistic expectations. The truth is, life is filled with both joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain. To deny one in pursuit of the other is to deny the full human experience. The Buddha taught the importance of accepting all aspects of life, including the difficult ones. Rather than chasing after happiness, we should seek peace. Peace comes from accepting the impermanence of all things, including our emotions. When we stop resisting sadness, anger, or discomfort, we find a deeper sense of inner calm. This doesn't mean we should give up on happiness. It simply means we should understand that happiness is fleeting, and that's okay. The key is to cultivate equanimity, a balanced mind that is not swayed by the ups and downs of life. When you stop chasing happiness and start accepting life as it is, you find a deeper sense of contentment. Lesson 6. Mistakes will happen. Perfection is a myth. No matter how hard you try, no matter how careful or diligent you are, mistakes will happen. This is one of the most brutal truths, but it is also one of the most freeing. Buddhism teaches that life is a process of continuous learning and growth. Mistakes are not something to be feared or avoided. They are opportunities for wisdom. The Buddha himself emphasized the importance of experiential learning. Mistakes are an inherent part of the journey, and they offer us valuable lessons if we are willing to learn from them. When you accept that mistakes will happen, you let go of the fear of failure. You stop judging yourself so harshly, and you begin to approach life with a sense of curiosity and openness. Every mistake becomes a stepping stone to greater understanding. This truth also helps you develop compassion for yourself and for others. When you understand that mistakes are inevitable, you stop holding yourself and others to impossible standards. You become more forgiving, more patient, and more kind. The Buddha taught the importance of right effort, taking action without attachment to the outcome. When you let go of the need for perfection, you can give your best effort without being paralyzed by the fear of failure. You realize that every misstep, is part of the path to enlightenment. Lesson 7. Staying comfortable can hold you back. The final brutal truth is one that challenges the very nature of human instinct. Staying comfortable can hold you back. As human beings, we are wired to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. We crave security, routine, and predictability because they make us feel safe. But Buddhism teaches us that true growth comes from stepping outside of our comfort zones. The Buddha himself left the comfort of his royal life to seek enlightenment. He understood that staying in a place of comfort and luxury would not lead to the deep wisdom he sought. It was through embracing discomfort, through facing his fears and the unknown, that he found the truth. Growth requires discomfort. Whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, we must be willing to step into the unknown, to face challenges, and to endure hardships. Staying comfortable may feel safe in the short term, but it often leads to stagnation. We stop growing, we stop learning, and we miss out on the richness of life. Buddhism teaches us the importance of non-attachment. When we are attached to comfort, we limit ourselves. We become afraid to take risks, to pursue our dreams, or to challenge the status quo. But when we let go of our attachment to comfort, we open ourselves up to new possibilities. This truth encourages us to embrace change, to seek challenges, and to push ourselves beyond what feels safe. It reminds us that true happiness and fulfillment don't come from staying in our comfort zones. They come from growth, from facing our fears, and from living fully. The 7 brutal truths that no one teaches you are not easy to accept, but they are essential for spiritual growth. These truths challenge the illusions we often cling to and force us to confront reality. Buddhism, with its emphasis on impermanence, non-attachment, and mindfulness, offers a path to understanding these truths and transcending suffering. By accepting that no one owes us anything, that we can't make everyone happy, that time is precious, and that people think of themselves first, we begin to let go of unrealistic expectations. By understanding that we can't always be happy, that mistakes will happen, and that comfort can hold us back, we learn to embrace life in all its complexity. The journey to enlightenment is not about avoiding suffering. It's about understanding it, accepting it, and transcending it. When you embrace these 7 truths, you free yourself from the illusions that cause suffering and begin to live a life of greater peace, compassion, and wisdom.